I'd like to talk about a second thing about this chapter in Fowler that I appreciate quite a bit. Fowler makes the appeal throughout this chapter for incorporating the humanities, in particular, into nursing practice. For example, on page 117, I've got something underlined here. Nursing needs, this is in the first full paragraph that begins with the word historically. Nursing needs both scientific and humanities research if it is to care for patients effectively. Let me read that again. Nursing needs both scientific and humanities research if it is to care for patients effectively. Now, quite honestly, I know that there are some folks pressing this same point with physicians' education as well. I think this is, I think it's incredibly important, but that's my perspective. This is the lens through which I view the world. I think all practice, one could make the case for accountancy, one could make the case for real estate sales, one could make the case for plumbing, is enhanced. I don't know how plumbing would be enhanced by humanities research. But I find that the work that I do and the work that my colleagues in the humanities do enhances every discipline. I think nursing is no exception to that, and I really appreciate that Fowler makes that point. Scientific and humanities together are better able to serve for patient care, I think. I think there is a wealth of, even if it's not lived knowledge, a wealth of a repository of the knowledge of the human experience that you can bring to the table with your patient care when you know a little bit of something about ethics, sure, about spirituality, of course, about philosophy, absolutely, about theology, but about history, about literature, about the arts. And there is research about how, about what kind of impact music and the visual arts make on patient care and recovery. So I think she's right to point those things out. That resonates with me because that's been my experience as well. At the bottom of page 114, however, let's go back to what she talks about as different ways to enhance or advance nursing practice. It is in the last paragraph before 7.1. She says, in fact, the 2015 code reclaims research in the provision itself and reorganizes the interpretive statements to put research and scholarly inquiry, advancing the body of knowledge and concerns for human and animal participants in research together in the first of the interpretive statements. So what is she doing here? She's talking about the importance of nursing practice being dependent on these, and it's talking also about the way research and scholarly inquiry can be interpreted. A little bit farther up, going backwards now, look at what she says about, it's in the middle of this paragraph that begins at the time of the revision, right after footnote 14. It also notes that nursing knowledge is derived from the sciences and humanities. So this statement that she makes below, having to do with scholarly inquiry and research, is balanced, not offset, but is balanced by saying that research is not merely something that is done within the sciences. And by sciences, we mean the natural sciences or the hard sciences, the biologies, the chemistries, the physics, right? But the humanities, the disciplines that I am more familiar with, that they too, not just informing nursing practice, but can inform nursing research. I'm not really sure what all that looks like, but there are some of you for whom this, you're going to go on perhaps to master's and doctoral work, and there may be just the kind of fire lit under you that, nursing and literature, it provides a way for you to think about nursing practice and about nursing philosophy in a way that I'd never get there because it's not my home discipline, right? So these are things that I think are important in Fowler. I want to jump over in the few minutes we have left in this video to talk about evidence-based or evidence-informed decision-making. Now, here's my question to you, and I'm not going to answer it for you. Which term do you think I would prefer? Now, ask yourself that question right now, get it locked in, and let me talk for a minute, and then ask yourself the question again at the end. Several years ago, the term data-driven became a popular term in higher education, and I think a popular term in spheres other than higher education, but certainly in my field. We're going to make data-driven decisions. Well, so the question I have is what's implied? When we say we're going to make data-driven decisions, we're going to make evidence-based decisions. Really, they're seems equal terms to me. Maybe I'm missing something, but I think they're fairly equal terms. What's implied? And I think one of the things that is implied is that data is uninterpreted. Data can stand on its own. That's not always the way we think about data. The idea that data just is, here's the data. And you've probably been in meetings, and I've been in those meetings. Well, here's the data. Well, maybe. So I ask these kinds of questions. Is this all the data? I was looking at some data just yesterday, in fact. Some data that on the surface of it, we would call this prima facie evidence. On the surface of it, it looked fairly negative for a couple of courses taught by a couple of professors. And the thing that I'm old enough to understand now is that this is one data set. There may be other data sets that offset what I think I'm seeing here, and the challenge is to make sure that you have all the data, or at least all the needed data, right? So one of the things I like to do is I like to read presidential biographies. And in the run-up to the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, this writer of a 2-volume on FDR that I wrote said the problem was not the lack of data. They had plenty of data. The problem was that there was actually too much data, and that led to a situation where the data was poorly interpreted. So if the data had been interpreted correctly, and right, what do we say? Hindsight is 20/20, right? Because now we know the key to unlocking the data. And sometimes we don't know the key to unlocking the data when we're in the middle of the circumstance. So the idea that data just stands on its own is problematic for me. Do I have all the data? Is the data that I have relevant? Does this data speak to the question I'm asking, or do I need different data? So I have questions about the idea that data just is. Here's another thing about data. It seems to come across like you can't argue with the data. Well, that's not what data is for, right? Data is to make arguments and to allow counter arguments. Data, it seems to me, used wrongly, is shutting down the conversation. Data should be a way to unlock the conversation. And that's why I did not like the term data-driven, or I came to not like it when I kind of sat down and thought about it. So I think as it relates to this question about evidence-based or evidence-informed, A, what do you think I like? B, what do you like? What makes sense to you? And how would you use data to advance your nursing practice? These are questions that I think Fowler deals with, remarkably well.